Welcome to The Weekly, a podcast brought to you by Calvary Bible Church with your host, Jay Ewing. I'm one of the pastors on staff here and reside usually on the Erie campus. We're so glad you're tuning in, no matter where you're coming from or where you've been. We're thankful for you to tune in. If you check us out on YouTube, you can see our radio faces. If you're listening today, thanks for listening on your commute, no matter where you're going. Hope your day is filled with lots of grace and peace and fruits of the Spirit, because we all need it, my friends. All right, we have Thomas in the booth today. No matter where you find yourself, you need to go to calvarybible.com, click your campus, find out what's happening in your neck of the woods. The fall is definitely in full swing, and Christmas is coming. There's so many things happening at Calvary. We want you to make sure you're informed, you're connected. Go to calvarybible.com. Also, you can always comment on the YouTube. We actually pay attention to that. And also, give us a 5-star review, nothing but 5 stars on your podcasting platform. And let us know that you're listening. That's enough announcements. Thomas, you remember day?
Good job, Jay.
You remember the day you picked this song out?
Not really. That was many moons. Hey, I wanted to start today by asking you to give us a review, a personal review, because this weekend you got to attend a CU Buff game.
I did.
It wasn't your first CU Buff game ever?
Definitely not.
Okay. Was it any of your family members' first CU Buff game ever?
You know, it was one of the 4 of us. Other, we went to the Mile High CU versus A&M game.
Okay.
So it's the first time.
You went as Aggie fans.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so this is the first time you stepped into holy ground at Folsom Field.
You know what? Folsom Field is one of the best venues in college football.
Yeah, they're burning incense all day.
The problem with Folsom Field, it needs to be upgraded, especially behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's just like everybody's house, man. Yeah. It's like we bought a new lampshade, but don't go upstairs.
I'm amazed at how old the things that are outside of the stadium itself are.
It may have been when the Lord founded the earth. But, okay, so you're there. You saw Ralphie run?
Oh, totally. The flyover was great. I was like, is this a demonstration of what the day's going to look like?
No, wind.
The wind got him, yeah.
It's too bad.
But it wasn't even like F6. Okay, if it was like a fire prevention guy.
I mean, it's a crop duster.
Yeah, like I was expecting when they said fly, I was like, oh, F-16s are in the building, or Warthogs, or something. Yeah. And those guys are like, wind, let's go.
Yeah, that's
you
true.
know what I mean?
That's true.
Like that. The guy's like, I'm driving a bus. I'm driving a bus.
I'm just gonna throw this out to everybody who wants to see the greatest flyover of all time.
Yes.
Is 4th of July,
right?
Erie, Colorado.
Okay.
Because they get the flyovers of all the cities on the 4th, and then in Erie they're doing the mountain town circuit, and they just drop into the canyon.
Oh man, just scream!
Oh my gosh, car alarms are going off, babies are screaming, and I'm like, America.
Yeah, that's great.
It's so good. All right. But it was a good experience for you?
Yeah, it was a good experience. You know, that's interesting. It just happenstance that we'll be attending a Texas A&M game this weekend.
Okay.
In Texas. Going back Thanksgiving week.
And would you say the Buff game is lacking compared to the 12th man?
I think I'm always appalled at the student section at CU.
Well, I mean, listen, I've been there when like entire sections are getting kicked out of the game.
Right.
Like CU fans, and I'm one of them, are terrible.
Yeah.
They're just not good fans.
It's just interesting. It's interesting the culture in which you set and the precedents which you set when you have traditions. You know what I mean? Like, it's super interesting.
Yeah.
Because at Texas A&M, when I've been there, like the students are opening doors and keeping them open, and you have to take your hat off to walk into the student center.
Oh, okay.
At Texas A&M. It's actually
so they actually think it's holy ground.
Yeah, it's a memorial hall for those fallen Aggies through the wars, as well as when the bonfire fell, those students.
Okay.
And so like the student center, like you just take your hat off. You can't walk on the grass people will start yelling at you if
Really?
you step on the grass in that area.
Wow.
And, it's just a little different culture-wise.
It's a little different. Well, I'm glad you got to experience the Mighty Buffaloes before you go down to Texas.
My son has been listening to the CU fight song every morning on the way to school.
Yes. There are two versions of that song.
Yes.
There's the PG version.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
And then people have added words.
Yeah.
I think the Language Arts Department of Colorado added words.
The best part about CU is it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful venue.
Oh my gosh.
It's an unbelievable
Who doesn't want
day.
to go to the Buffs?
Right.
Mountains, sun.
And we sat in a section that had longtime Buffs fans who were very nice, kind, cordial individuals. So we had a great experience.
So you were not sitting next to the student section?
No, but the restroom line was so long. We walked to the student section one because that was the shortest bathroom.
Yeah.
And that was interesting for my 10-year-old and 8-year-old to hear the language come out.
Yeah, you learn new words.
Yeah, totally. So, it's a culture thing.
Yeah.
So I have sat in the student section at Texas A&M. When we went last time, we had a cousin who was still a student. She got us student tickets.
Sweet.
And that was really fun because there's only one time you sit down the whole game at Texas A&M.
Oh, really?
That's when the visiting band plays.
Oh, I thought it was when you guys were praying for a victory.
No. But so you have to stand the whole time. You stand through the Aggie band because it's a military band. So it's a very formal.
The whole stadium stands. Or this is
the student section does. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's super, super fun. There's a lot of fun traditions.
Rumor on the street is people want Coach Prime to leave Colorado to go be an Aggie.
The problem with that is he can't take his son or Travis Hunter.
Okay, so you're saying we're okay.
I mean, here's the thing with the CU fans.
Yeah,
we're about to get to Revelation. Don't worry, people.
Mm-hmm. But give us a revelation on the CU Buffs first.
Every great job that comes available, until the day he leaves, everyone's going to throw his name into it.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yeah. So just buckle up, buttercups. It's all right.
It's kind of like when a senior pastor position opens, that you get an email.
Right. Right.
It's like, listen, you don't poach him from Calvary Bible Church.
Yeah. Totally. All right. So let's talk about Revelation.
Yep.
And we're in the thick of it, my friends.
These are the chapters everyone skips.
Deep, deep texts of the scriptures.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why is, we talked about this even in my life group, is the language is still so strange. And you feel like if you hang out with the language, you would get to know it better. And then you're like, nope, still strange. Every week from week to week.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we'll go into this weekend on Sunday. And even there, the angel gives the interpretation of what John has seen. And it's still confusing.
Yeah.
Totally. He's like, let me tell you about the woman and the rider of the beast. And then we're still wondering, wait, I'm confused.
Right. Totally.
But I do think if you can get your mindset in biblical language and how the Bible talks about things, and just know that there is a spoken language that you're not privy to, and educate yourself as much as possible, it becomes at least less foreign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, the big takeaway for me this week, and I wonder if this is true, these two chapters really were focused on what God is doing, in the sense of God is the one who is the rightful one to bring judgment.
Yeah, I think this is where Revelation is. We said this, at least a dozen times. Revelation is a book about worship.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to see the worship in the throne room. You're going to see the lack of worship on earth. You're going to see the false worship of the beast. And you're just going to see, oh, man, God is exalted to such a high view. We're seeing Jesus in a way that maybe we haven't seen him before, right? There's like a transfiguration of Jesus, the ascension of Jesus, the glorified Jesus. And it should lead us to worship. We should go, man, if God is that big and that great, I want to worship him, which is not, hey, I want to sing some songs simply. This is, I want to give my allegiance in my life to follow the sovereign Lord, the one who, in this case, judges the earth with righteousness and equity.
Yeah, but when he judges the earth, he is the only one who actually knows how to do it the proper way.
That's true, because all of our judgments are, I use this word perverted just because it's bent, it's warped, it's a favoritism, it's me-centered, however you want to say it. But all judgments of man are perverted. I loved Pastor Perry had preached the same text in Boulder. I did a great job. If you were confused in Erie, you should download Perry Marshall in Boulder. But he opened up talking about referees and the game that was reffed, the women's championship last year, and how there were some controversial calls. And they actually went and reviewed the game and said, you know what, that didn't live up to our standard. Like, here's our standard of a 91% like accurately called game. This was below that standard. And you watch every sporting event and you think, okay, the refs must be homegrown here, right? Like somebody's mom is calling the game, or their dad's on the field. And we have, just a bent way of looking at even just the sporting events that we watch, let alone the life we're trying to interpret.
Right.
And so it's wonderful to know that there's a God who sees all the evidence. Like he's not going to execute his judgment in favoritism or any partiality. It's not bent towards the rich or to the poor. It's not for some class of people or some race of people. It is his perfect, right, equitable justice. And it's like, man, we all crave justice.
Right.
But we don't love the one who is usually making the decisions on our behalf. And here's God who makes those decisions.
Yeah. And the Bible teaches us how to wait by asking, how long, O Lord?
Yeah, what do you think about that? You said you had mentioned that about the Psalms.
Yeah, I think the Psalms, and goes back to, we talked about this a bunch on the weekly over the years. The Psalms give us a language on how to do life, how to pray through life, how to worship through life, and how to do life at its best. This gives us language. And so when you're a person who has read the Psalms over and over again, which I think you should read the Psalms every day. And when you get to 150, start back over, right? And that should be your prayer book for the rest of our lives. And so the psalmist tells us and teaches us how to ask when we see injustice. We need to cry out, how long, O Lord? And you pointed it out, actually, in Revelation 6, it comes here, and it's back again, right? As we're starting to wrap up the judgments, it's like he's answering this question.
Yeah.
Now is the time.
Back in 6, they were crying out, how long, until you vindicate us. And I think that's a misunderstood word in the sense of like, man, he's going to just go and do harm to people who harmed his people. And vindicate really is to show that our witness and our testimony was true. So how long until you almost reveal yourself in a world so that everyone knows that Jesus is king? How long until you show that the world we were talking about of heaven and earth is real? How long until you judge evil and wickedness? And here we're seeing in the 7th bowl, that's now. We're going to judge the whole earth. And we talked about that on Sunday. Do you think that was helpful of just reminding the frame of Revelation around the 3 cycles?
Oh, definitely. There's definitely 3 cycles in here that we need to point out. And you mentioned that the first cycle was
the seals. Yeah, it was actually a quarter of the earth.
A quarter of the earth.
So the judgments that come from the seals affects a quarter of the earth.
And then the judgments that affect are 1/3 of the earth?
With the trumpet judgments.
Okay.
Yep.
And then now we're reading the full judgment of the bowls.
Yeah, the bowls is going to cover the whole earth.
As you look through this text, the angels play such a big, I think that's another thing that I think we should point out in Revelation is that the angels have a real job in heaven. And we're watching their jobs here unfold.
Yeah.
And there's 7 different angels with 7 different bowls. As you study the text, what do you notice about angels that maybe has caught your attention or helped you reframe what you think about them?
Well, I think, there's no lack of work of angels through the Old Testament, through the Gospels. You see them ministering to Jesus, right? They're carrying messages to Daniel. So angels are all over the place.
One of the most important individuals in the birth narratives as we think about Christmas.
Exactly. And so you see that they actually have a real job that's going to continue until the Lord brings completion to the earth. They're his messengers. They're the ones that carry out tasks. It's pretty wild to think about, actually.
Yeah, it is really wild.
Which, for some of us, like, oh, man, I was touched by an angel. And you're like, oh, tell me about that experience. And like, I was just warm and fuzzies. And I want to be like, I don't think you saw an angel, man.
Yeah.
Like when people see angels, they do one of 2 things. They want to die because they're terrified. Or 2, they want to worship it.
You're right.
And we see that in Revelation. They want to worship this angel. The angel says, no, don't worship me. Right. Worship Jesus. Worship God alone, period. which again, there's a fun apologetic of the deity of Jesus Christ, is Jesus does not tell people not to worship him. All angels do. And so he's not just a prophet. He's not just an angelic being. He's the Son of God. Anyway, that one's free.
Well, and it tells you how to maybe spot him out in the Old Testament when the angel doesn't say, don't worship me.
That could be a good clue.
Prefigurement of Jesus.
Yeah. So I don't remember the question, but angels are cool.
Yeah. Well, how has it deepened your understanding of them? Like, just in your personal reflection of bumping into them every week. I think you're summing it up, but is there something new that you've never known before?
It just goes and heightens the awareness of not everything that's happening today that I see is just flesh and bones. It's not just creation busted and broken. It's not just my own flesh that's broken. Like there is a spiritual battle going on. Obviously the New Testament is, highlighting constantly. This is actually our battle. It's not against flesh and blood.
Right.
But there's actually something going on that has cosmic implications between angels and fallen angels, between God's agenda and Satan's agenda, that if we're not privy to, it just feels like, man, that was a hard week.
Yeah.
There's a lot of evil in this world. What's wrong? And this helps us understand a little bit more of it.
That's so good. Okay, in chapter 15 and 16, there's these big worship texts that we slow down. And I love how the ESV, especially in the journals that we have, has highlighted them by editing, like by formatting them.
Yep, they format them as in music text.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you notice about these texts? Are they Old Testament texts? Are they Psalms? Are they Mary's Magnificat? What's going on here with these texts?
They're victory songs. So in the Old Testament, you had Moses. He sang a song. Deborah, Song of Deborah. She sang a song. These are victory texts to talk about how great God is and the work that God has done.
So the first one in 15 is Moses' text.
It's not word for word.
Yeah.
And so you're incorporating Moses' language. And then it also says the Song of the Lamb, right?
Right.
So the Song of Moses and the Song of the Lamb. Revelation had said they're going to sing a new song that only the children of God know. And so I think this is giving us an insight into a new song that only the children of God know how to sing.
It's amazing that we've never studied these texts. If this is our song, why wouldn't I know these? You know what I mean?
I think in a sense, I'm not a great hymnologist.
Yeah.
That's even a proper term.
Yeah. Hymnist.
Hymnist. I don't know. Someone like Mark Wicks would know. If only he was here.
Only the Canadian was in the room.
But you go back and you think, how many great hymns that you know are actually influenced and written from Revelation?
Right.
Crown him with many crowns. I mean, we have rich verbiage from Revelation. So we might not even recognize that a lot of our music comes from Revelation.
It makes sense because those are songs to drive us to worship.
It's a book of worship.
It's a worship. Yeah.
So what's interesting about the first song is that they sing it before the execution of the plagues and judgments. So Moses sang it after that. And it's like it's almost like the writer's making you aware that God's judgments and his rescue and the ultimate exodus is so sure that people are singing about his victory before it happens.
That's wonderful.
And so for the believer, it's like, let's sing the song. We know how the thing ends.
Right.
It should just settle our soul. Right. There's so much anxiety in the world. These sorts of texts should settle us down and say, man, we know the God who's in charge. We know how he's acting. Let's take a deep breath. Though it looks like chaos out there, we know, man, God, you are so good. You have given us the victory. So
it's really good, Thomas. So when we look at these bowls, these are like new plagues? Are these old plagues?
What do you think? Well, I mean, you're reading them.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that they sort of remind me of the Exodus plagues. And I was like, what's happening? Is it a retelling of Exodus? Is it a further telling? Is Exodus actually warning us of what God will do someday?
Yeah.
Like from bookend to bookend, we know that there's going to be judgments. And it's interesting that the correlation here for me is that there's some people, even in these 7 bowls, that don't repent.
Right.
And in Pharaoh's day, he doesn't repent.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that makes sense. And just a reminder that when God judges, people just get more mad at him. They actually don't submit to him.
Yeah.
which tells you the stubbornness of Pharaoh. We knew the Pharaoh's stubbornness. We read it in Exodus, but in Revelation, it's still happening.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I don't think they're plague for plague, a total recapitulation of what happened in Egypt, but they are the parallels. And so the writer, definitely wants you as a reader to link your mind to, I feel like I've heard this story before in a very specific geographical location in which now is being played out globally, which is God's judgment of evil in the world. And these are plagues. I think, you think of Egypt, when I think of the Exodus story, there's some fascinating stuff. One being each plague that God uses in Egypt directly was an assault against an Egyptian deity.
Definitely.
And so
that's fascinating.
He's showing you like, okay, you worship Ra. Okay, I'm gonna darken the sun. You worship, if I get these all right, I don't know if I would, Isis, Isil, the god of the Nile, and so I'm gonna plague the Nile. Right? You think you're gonna worship the god of fertility? I'm going to destroy, livestock, to show you that God is, superior.
Right. And a good, you can Google like the parallels between Egyptian gods
totally
and the plagues.
I just butchered it, but yeah.
And that they're mostly accurate.
Yeah.
When you Google that.
And the last one culminating in, okay, you think Pharaoh's God. Okay, the last plague is death and affects Pharaoh's house.
And it takes his firstborn.
Just so, hey, pay attention. You're not God.
Right.
These aren't gods. I'm God. And so part of the plagues wasn't just simply judgment, but if you go back and read the Exodus story over and over and over again, God says, Moses, you will execute these plagues that Egypt will know that I am the Lord God. So it's informing them of like, who is this Lord? Because remember, Moses comes to Pharaoh in the very beginning. He says, let my people go. And Pharaoh says, I don't know your God. And it's almost like Moses saying, well, let me introduce you.
Yeah.
Like you have failed to know the creator of the universe. And now I will introduce you to the God of Israel, the true God. And so again, it's like the world says, I don't know God. And God says, okay, I will introduce myself to you.
Yeah. And then in fourth bowl and fifth bowl, they said they do not repent of their deeds.
They don't repent.
So you broke them up into the first six, at least.
I didn't, but some scholars have.
Yeah.
I did read a book.
1 through 4 are ecological. So they have to do with natural world stuff. Right?
Yeah. Well, in the first, even in the seals and in the trumpets and in the bowls, the first 4 are kind of categorically together and have a lot of environmental, ecological implications. And then the following 3 look like it's more of a direct assault against evil itself, the source of evil.
And the adversaries.
Yeah.
So, and the beast comes up again. We talked about the beast last week. The beast is defeated with the bull.
Yeah, his throne room is directly assaulted by the plagues, which is great. And so, I don't know, we talked about the wrath of God, and we just said, all of us have wrath. It can be bent. It can show favoritism, which means we're not the good judge. But God has wrath, which is the right and fitting response to evil. And so when God says, it is finished, like when he pours out these bowls, it says, this is the end of my wrath. That also means, this is why it's so good, that also means it's the end of evil. For God's wrath is associated with the presence of evil. So if he has poured out the fullness of his wrath and there's nothing left to be angry about, that also simultaneously means that's the end of wickedness, of evil, of sin, of perversions, of the things that harm our life. That's done. And so the other piece of it is, we didn't talk about it on Sunday, so much of this language is decreation. And so you're taking the seas that were brought together and then you're judging the seas. You're taking the lands and the stars and the skies and then you're like bringing it back down to the darkness essentially, which is God decreating the world as it currently is. It's like almost like deconstructing a house that has mold and finding the good bones. And so he's deconstructing the world, making room ready, what he's about to do with the rest of Revelation, which is reconstruct or bring about his new creation.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's cool to think about, okay, this is his work. This is how he answers, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. How does thy will that's being done in heaven become earth's reality?
Wow. And it's fascinating for a believer to read it and participate in the joy of this and also the sadness and sorrow. It's a big mixed bag of emotions.
Yeah, it goes back to, when John's told to eat the scroll and it's bittersweet. It's like sweet because, you want justice. And then it's bitter in the stomach. It's like, I can't stomach this.
Yeah.
This is really hard to watch.
Right.
But
okay, let's talk about this crazy word, Armageddon.
Yeah, what do you think about Armageddon? What comes to mind? Okay, what comes to mind when you hear the word Armageddon? Because I have
music from the 90s on the movie Armageddon.
I was going to say Bruce Willis.
Close my eyes.
That's the only thing I think of is Bruce Willis with, was it Ben Affleck?
I don't remember.
Like flying a spaceship with a nuclear bomb. I love that.
I just remember the soundtrack to that movie. I don't even remember the movie. The soundtrack was epic.
Who sings that song?
Aerosmith.
That's Aerosmith.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, Aerosmith.
Yeah. Sorry, I only know the Gettys.
Ray Boltz.
Yeah, that's all comes to my mind. It's like end of the world. Like even in the media, this is an Armageddon moment. It's
Armageddon.
People in
we use it all the time.
CNN, Fox, MSNBC, New York Times.
Gaza, Hamas was Armageddon.
Yeah. So Armageddon essentially like has a cultural flavor for us today too.
Oh, totally. We sort of know what it is.
End of the world.
End of the world. Yeah. Like not end of the world. Lots of bombs going off into the world. You know what I mean? Like it's like that.
Do aliens come at Armageddon?
I don't remember. I don't know.
I
just remember Aerosmith. Okay, I just remember Aerosmith.
I don't remember if there were aliens or not.
But you talk about there's actually the Valley of Megiddo.
Yeah, Megiddo, and
that was super interesting.
Well, I guess my biblical Hebrew is very limited.
Yeah,
but
I totally get it.
Armageddon is just Har, meaning mount or mountain, Megiddo, so mountain of Megiddo. And the peculiar thing, as people look at that, is there's a famous place of Megiddo, north of Israel, I believe, up by Galilee. If that's correct. If it's not correct, somebody can write in the show notes.
Yeah.
But famous battles happened there.
Okay, it's like what famous battles?
Well, we got to go to the kings.
Okay.
So...
I was just in it. I was just in 2 Kings.
Okay, so some of those battles are going to be in there.
Really?
So famous battles in which Israel kind of marks out in their mind, like we would Gettysburg, Pearl Harbor, D-Day.
Yeah.
And so the question that people are asking is, okay, when you actually go to Megiddo, it's flat. I mean, there's no mountain there, and if all the armies of the world are supposed to gather here, there's not enough room for them, and perhaps this is talking about more of a global sense in which the armies are coming against the people of God. And this is just to recount kind of like Gettysburg. This will be the turning point of the war, or D-Day. This is going to be really the end of the war, the climactic battle to end the conflict. So that's basically what we're talking about on Sunday.
That's amazing. Jezreel Valley.
Jezreel Valley, is that it? Okay.
It's in the Jezreel Valley, which is super interesting, is that like, when you read this text once again, you know that it's grounded in something that is familiar.
Yeah, I think one of the things we even try to do with the graphics of the book of Revelation is in the graphics of Revelation, maybe people know this, maybe they don't, that's actually a picture of Patmos, which is where John was when he sees these visions and writes these accounts. And just, I think a lot of people think of Revelation as otherworldly. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where a lot of the stumbling block comes from, when they have to realize Revelation is very earthy. And so even in their terminology of battles, it's rooted in historical, geographical like areas.
Right.
Even like Jerusalem, Israel, it's in geographical areas, meaning it's earthy. And like what God's going to do is make all things new. It has earthy implications.
Wow.
And then the plagues, right? They're environmental. They're ecological. They're God's way of saying, hey, pay attention.
Yeah.
Okay. You're not God. You're not in charge of pestilence. Like I do think about, people ask about like COVID-19 or whatever, and I think, man, it's just like end time stuff. And I think in the sense you can just say, hey, anytime you see a global pandemic, it's to get your eyes on Jesus, on God, saying, hey, this world is not the way it is. And to be reminded that we need God's intervention. Whereas most of our leaders during even like COVID-19 were like, we will crush this.
Right.
We will be victorious.
Right.
We will overcome this. We'll use technology. We'll use medicine. You stay home. We'll get you safe.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that's the arrogance of like Nebuchadnezzar that God's directly going against, which is, you need God. Yeah. And this is another reminder that you needed the Lord.
Okay, I have a really, really hard question.
Yeah.
And we have these 3 judgments.
Okay.
The quarter, the 1/3, the full. Are these happening now, or will these happen?
Yeah. I'll give you 3 ideas of interpretation.
Okay.
And there are more than this. So one would say, absolutely. So this is a characterization of the times of Jesus. These are the last days from his ascension to his second coming. And so this is the character of the world that you live in. This is its nature, which I think is true, right? Wars, rumors of wars, pestilence, disease, earthquakes, famines. That has described the world that we live in. So in one sense, it would be unusual if those were the descriptions of our world. And then we would say, I've never heard of an earthquake. Do you know what an earthquake is? No. Must be something at the end of the age. So that would be unusual if none of these events were happening and we were saying, hey, it's just descriptions of our world. However, it is descriptions of our world. And so therefore, you could lean towards, hey, this is descriptions of the world as it is, period. Other camp on the other side would say, no, these are earthquakes as the world has never seen before. And so all of this is reserved for the final days. Or where I would lean, this is me always trying to like have cake and eat it, is yes and no. Like Jesus described the last days as birth pangs. And he said, when you see these things happening, it's not the end, but it is the beginning of the end. And birth pangs are, contractions happen for over a period of time, culminating in the delivery of your child, right? And the first contraction categorically is the same as the last contraction. Now, I've never been pregnant, but my wife tells me the last contraction is rather different than the first one. It's like, ooh, I think I had a contraction. The last one is like, you're at 9 centimeters, 10 centimeters, baby's coming. So like characteristically, yeah, they're the same, but they've grown in 2 things. One, intensity and frequency. And so when you see these things growing in intensity and frequency, I think you're seeing the conclusion of them. Now, is this the intensity and frequency that is the end? I don't know that. But I would say, yeah, you're actually seeing more and more of this being poured out.
So what you're saying is what you said on Sunday, which the text says in 16. It says, actually, it's in 15, sorry. No, maybe it's in 16. Where is it where it says, be ready?
Be ready. That's 16:15.
Yeah, 16. Behold, I'm coming like a thief. Blessed is the one who stays awake, keeping his garments on, that he may not go about naked and be seen exposed.
Yeah. Be awake. Like, be anticipatory of Christ's return. I think when we asked that question on Sunday, who thinks that Jesus could come tomorrow? The majority of people in the room did not raise their hand. Now, that could mean because they don't want to participate in fun games. But I just thought, okay, no, actually, this is the call to everybody in this room to wake up,
right?
To be in the reality that Jesus Christ can come at any time. And maybe he comes later today, maybe he doesn't. But we live as though it is possible.
So let's stay awake, Calvary. Stay awake. Prayerful, right? Not just cups of coffee from Calvary.
Prayerful and caffeinated.
Let's stay awake.
Yeah.
Let's be having our garments on, ready for the return of Christ.
Yeah.
I hope, Calvary, you're blessed by this conversation. Let us know in the show notes on YouTube what you're thinking, what questions you have, as well as let's continue to remind each other and gather weekly here at Calvary to stay awake, worship the living God, and be ready for this wonderful, wonderful, great day. All right, thanks.